Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Trek Before. This time we finished the trilogy. No, this is not Search for Spock. This is Return of the Jedi. Yeah, we did all three. Jimmy gritted his teeth and got through all three. He did it. This is some people's favorite of the original, or some people, the entire 9-picture run. Anyway, hear what Jimmy's got to say about it, what I've got to say about it, what Keith's got to say about it. You're here for Return of the Jedi. It's all been Trek before. And while you're here, go to patreon.com/IBD and get any bonus episodes. This isn't one. This is one just for you. Sign up now and you can hear our special episode of Flash Gordon next week as a Patreon member. And this is Return of the Jedi and It's All Been Trek Before.
Out to another episode of It's All Been Trek Before. Some of your hosts are here.
This is Steven.
Jimmy-Jerome. We invited Keith, but right now he's at a galaxy far, far away. A long time ago, I think.
I was going to say hyperspace, but that's
showing up. Yeah, I don't know where Keith is. Hopefully he'll join us. If not, we miss him, and hopefully he'll be back up for the next episode. We're talking episode 6 because I believe you said, Steven, we got to finish the trilogy. We already did episodes 4 and 5.
It seemed like we should.
Do you see a strong argument that we need to do other Star Wars movies, or do you think these three will be it for this podcast?
I don't. I mean, Keith and I are prequel defenders, and the sequels I run hot and cold with. So yeah, I don't feel a burning desire to do any of those, but we'll see.
I mean, if we do this podcast for another 15 years, I suppose at some point we might want to pick up some more Star Wars. But yeah, I agree. I'd say the immediate plans right now do not include any further Star Wars movies, but subject to change depending on our whims and whatever. This movie came out in 1983, which was the year I was born. So obviously I did not see it in theaters. I'm assuming you probably saw it in theaters?
Yeah, I'm wearing the t-shirt I wore that day, my Return of the Jedi t-shirt.
Nice.
Still have it, so over 40 years old. My dad, bless his heart, pulled me and my brother and my younger sister out of school so we could see the noon. That's when the premieres were back then, at the 12 o'clock noon. I'm pretty sure it was a Friday. Maybe it was a Wednesday. It might have been a Wednesday. I take that back. So we saw it then, and then a friend of my older sister's was like, I gotta see it. You guys want to come with me? And so we went back and saw it a second time that day. And then I think I saw it like 4 more times in the theater. So that was my first impression. My first impression was I liked it a lot. And actually, there were parts of it I liked more watching it, and we'll get into this later, but watching it this time, there's the whole generational thing, but a lot of the old fans hate the prequels, but a lot of the kids love the prequels, and they know Clone Wars and all that stuff, and they're helping fuel the stuff now. And I was definitely and I still am. I still think Jedi is the weakest of the first 3, but I actually liked it more last night, maybe because I hadn't seen it in a while. And I'm also one of the weirdos that has Revenge of the Sith above this, actually. And I don't know.
Wow.
But that's very controversial because most people hate Revenge of the Sith and all the prequels. But maybe I need to reevaluate. Maybe I will. Maybe next time I watch Revenge of the Sith. But I really did enjoy this, and we'll get into it. Some of the stuff and maybe it's just age. It hit me differently. Maybe it's not having Carrie Fisher alive in our lives anymore. But there were things I was taking myself back to being 15 and being like, this is jive. I don't like this or whatever. Or maybe even being 15 or 21 or 24 or whatever. Whereas now I'm like, no, okay, now this is connecting for me. Now I get it. But yeah.
So yeah, I mean, this came out in May of 1983. I was born in March. So technically I was alive when it came out, but I was 2 months old. I don't know when I saw it for sure. I'm going to guess around age 5-ish. I know we used to get the 3 original Star Wars movies on VHS from the local library and watch them over and over. I've told this story on the podcast before. I asked for Star Wars one time, and my dad brought me Star Trek: The Motion Picture instead. And I said, what's this garbage I've been wasting my time with? I still feel that way to a certain extent. We rewatch. I maintain that Jedi's the most fun of the 3 originals. My wife and I rewatched them all shortly before episode 7. We watched 1 through 6 again. And my impression at that time, this was probably 7-8 years ago, was that episode 4, the original movie, is just as bad as the prequels. People just give it extra credit that it deserves. It's a mess and makes no sense.
I definitely can't go there, but
I think Empire is a well-made movie. I think Jedi is fun, but it kind of a mess. So I've always ranked Empire as the best, even though it's kind of boring, and then Jedi is second of the 7 or the 9. Now that we have Rogue One, though, I mean, I'd put that at 1 or 2 for sure, and bump Jedi down a spot.
My rank is here, where I've got
Rogue One's pretty awesome.
I liked Rogue One, and then I rewatched that, and it actually moved up in my estimation. So did Last Jedi. So actually, Rogue One is number 5 on my list, just behind Jedi. So
7, 8, and 9. Actually, none of the new ones from 7 on, including Rogue One and Solo, I've not watched any of them twice. I've still only watched them all once. So eventually I'll watch them again, I'm sure. But
Return of the Jedi is 3, Revenge of the Sith is 4, then Rogue One. So actually, Return of the Jedi is number 3 for me. So I know some people that Return of the Jedi is their favorite, and for similar things you're saying, it is fun. For me, like I said, I used to have Empire number 1, but I've changed my mind back to Star Wars: The Motion Picture. We wouldn't have all this other stuff if not for that. And that's part of the argument and thought process. And I know I can always, and I did it watching this one too, but take myself back to the first time I saw Star Wars and how much, if there would never been another movie after that, I'd have been like, this is still my favorite movie of all time. And granted, I was 9. And it's probably not my number 1 movie of all time. It's probably in the top 10, but it's my favorite still, at least. So
I didn't think this was as a mess as I remembered it being, but it still has some pretty major plot issues I have with like major parts of it. So we'll get to all that as we break it down. But I will say the Ewoks are a great element. Princess Leia kicks butt in this one. Like, she's pretty awesome in this movie. Yep. In a way, much less of a damsel by the time we get to this one. And there's some good lines. There's some great callbacks. And some exciting moments. And I like the forest setting that they spent half the movie in. Yeah, so I was less enthused about the Luke Vader Empire wrap-up, but, or Emperor wrap-up.
Initially, going into it over the years, I always thought that I wanted that part more than the, destroying the shield. This time, though, I was very much like, you know what? I like them both about equal. It's become equal. It used to be like, get me back to what's going on with Luke. And that's because I was a Luke guy or whatever you want to call me. But yeah, everything you just said is.
I always found Luke so annoying.
I know people do, but as a kid, I'm like, no, he's what I want to be. I want to get out of my farm. I'm a farm boy who wants to get out of here and go to the galaxy far, far away. But I also, the Ewoks I've kind of come around on too. Even then, I was like, what is with these teddy bears? And now I'm like, you know what? I'm okay with this. There's a couple spots. It's like, all right, we got it. But yeah. I've come around.
I was always a Han Solo guy, but I've come around on Leia as more of a, Luke still doesn't do it for me. I like Mark Hamill, and I appreciate Luke better in the 7, 8, 9, not so much in these, but
yeah.
Especially the cockiness he has in this one just feels so unearned to me, but whatever.
Well, that gets into my issues with the 7, 8, 9 and just the way everything played out. I always wanted to see what's all the other stuff Luke did. What are all the other adventures he had, which is, Mandalorian did a little bit of it with the weird, pseudo Luke and all that stuff. So that's the stuff, and some of the novels and stuff I've read or whatever. That's the stuff I wanted to see. Was like Luke Skywalker, the greatest Jedi of all time. So I love his cockiness here. But you're doing the Han Solo line, like Jedi Knight. I'm out for a little while. Delusions of grandeur. And just while we're kind of in first impressions mode, the Han Solo lines I used to not like, and this time I was more than ever like, you know what? No, that is Han. The movie needs it. It makes it fun, and it hits a lot of callbacks to 1 and 2, and it's great. Yeah. So I've come around on that too. So I definitely appreciate the movie a lot more this time that I watched.
So Keith has joined. So when did you first see Return of the Jedi?
Yeah, in the theater, I believe.
Like, is it the top of your Star Wars film list, in the middle, the bottom?
I would say that is not near the top by most means at this point. Oh, all right. So the things I was thinking about as I was watching it this time, I probably watched it most recently within the last 1 or 2 years, perhaps. Probably some other rewatch of something or other. I got certain other things out of it this time through, having seen some of the other material that has come out since then. Certain seasons of The Mandalorian, especially the Rancor. That did hit a little differently when you think. There's also a Star Wars game for the Xbox, the Kinect version, and they actually have that's the camera that mirrors your movements and so on. So it's like the games in which you're physically moving to control things. And one of the things they have is a mode where you can play a Rancor, and so you're walking through cities, destroying things, and for different levels they have they have the cutscenes at the beginning. to set the scene. And in one of them, they're showing why the Rancor is upset. You have like a little girl with a pet Rancor who can't keep him anymore. The family won't let her.
Mm-hmm.
And she has to, go, I hate you, to make him leave, because it wouldn't, that whole trope of like, yeah. Anyway, seeing the creatures through those different perspectives. When I was a little kid, and most of the times you see that scene, it's almost played for comedic value. Like we're supposed to just ha ha ha, look at this dumb villain who is doing this, and oh good, we wanted this monster to die, and so forth. And when you see some other aspects, it hit much differently this time, I'll say. And I think just getting older, I am more amused by over the top villainry. So it's always fun to this time through study Palpatine's voice closer. And it took me till the end before I realized, of course, he would have had to have been recast for the prequels, right? I mean, it's not the same guy, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
It's Ian McDiarmid. Yeah.
Ian McDiarmid was the Emperor. Was he in the prequels?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. He was.
Yeah, he was. He played older, obviously here.
They've even used him as the voice in Star Wars: The Bad Batch and Tales of the Jedi in the last.
I am stunned.
And he was in Obi-Wan Kenobi. Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. It didn't sound exactly the same, but I mean, obviously, that's so weird.
Mm-hmm.
Since you mentioned the holograms, but I always appreciate the way the world is built in such a way that it seems like everything is primitive, even though they have a lot of technology that's more advanced than ours. Everything is still kind of like a rundown feeling, but it's just the same way we have all kinds of housing built from different generations. We have stacked up with different kinds of technology that don't necessarily mesh with it, but
yeah, Lucas always. I mean, I always liked his idea was that, and obviously that is the case. That the galaxy was all these amazing things, futuristic or whatever, or advanced technological things, but a lot of it's fallen into a state of disrepair.
Mm-hmm.
Which is one thing I feel like the sequels kind of left that behind. But
right, I think the other factor involved, as I was watching it, especially this time, is I've probably seen the Family Guy spoofs of it, or satire of it, as many times as I've seen the movie at this point.
I had that same experience, Keith.
Certain beats are hitting, and I'm like, this thing, and
I had the same experience of like, am I remembering Family Guy right now, or am I remembering seeing this?
We get a view of the half-finished Death Star. That looks pretty cool. I give him major props for making a model. And, for those that saw the finished Death Star and wondered, like, how it came together, it's really cool to see one half done.
And that's another thing I came around on is, like, because I used to be like, oh, man, what? We're doing the Death Star again? Enough already. But it makes sense. They'd be like, you know what? This worked pretty good before. We think we can fix it. Now,
we just got to get rid of that vent that traitor put into it.
But now when we get to like the Star Killer or whatever the thing was in Force Awakens, I was like, all right, already. Then that was a bridge too far for me. It was the Death Star too far. I didn't like it. But.
From there we go to Jabba's palace, which is disgusting and gross. And while I appreciate some of the little characters in it, I just never liked the scenes being in it early on, and I still don't. It's so gross.
I love that we finally get the Jabba payoff. Finally, after.
That we finally get to see him?
2+ movies, yeah.
So this is the first major plot issue I have, is what is their plan exactly to rescue Han? Get everybody else captured? That's the plan? And how is that helpful? I get Luke sending R2-D2 in so he can plant the lightsaber, so he can come in at that moment. Everybody else, Lando, Chewie, Leia, C3, it all seems so extraneous and ridiculous that it doesn't seem like they actually have a cohesive plan, and it annoys me.
The Star Wars Minute guys recap this too, and every time they did it, I was like, stop talking. You're really unraveling this for me, because I still love everything, all that stuff. But yeah, when you start breaking it down, it's like, that's what they kept saying. It was like, what was the plan? They said exactly what you said, Jimmy, and it's like, so. The plan was that they would get put to death, and then that way R2 could be on the bridge. And the plan was R2 gets a job serving drinks, so he gets on the bar.
It makes no sense at all.
I think there's a way to look at it where it almost works, and that's just that. Okay. I think these are just all redundancies, essentially. We saw. I think that where the first thing went wrong, where Luke. I don't think Luke intended to go into the Rancor pit, for example. At that point, if the lightsaber popped out, they would have been done. And I think that we're all still in place and probably adjusting to different kinds of contingencies at that point.
The real plan was one of those first plans would work, but
Right.
if they didn't, then Luke was going to show up and be like, all right, now I got to take care of this.
Yes, pretty much.
From that point of view, from that certain point of view, I can.
Yeah, yes. When were they saying that? That happened? I think it was
Kenobi says it a little later.
On Dagobah.
I wrote it down. What I told you was true from a certain point of view.
Yes.
When Luke says, but you said Vader killed my father. What gives? It feels like a retcon of the fourth and fifth film. It feels like they did not have the twist in Empire set up when they made the fourth.
I thought about that.
That broke continuity. So then we're going to have a scene with Obi-Wan in the sixth one to fix continuity. Mm-hmm. That's what it seemed like.
Well, I just wanted to say that, yes, you're probably correct. I started thinking about some of those things as well. But I think that that is one of the biggest complaints from Rise of Skywalker, as I hear it. The idea of that kind of retconning. You can see them throwing away very interesting characters left and right, just like whatever. They're dead now very easily. We built them up to this kind of action figure level of marketing, but when you have the actual fight choreography and things, or some of the battles, it's sort of like whatever. And then you go back to prequels when obviously you have better choreography, better effects, and it's wait, why weren't we using these characters this way? Well, I mean, I'm answering my own question and probably answering their own questions as well. But and this is where I don't want to give away too much, as you were saying. A lot of the supplementary material they have outside of the movies was amazing for fixing a lot of these kinds of things. They gradually eased their way into, okay, we don't want to, all right, we're retconning something, but we want to spin the lore so it doesn't seem quite as bad. And I think a lot of that material is spent softening those blows. The Clone Wars animated series was just incredible.
Well, and the stuff Obi-Wan was saying to Luke when he was doing the retcon definitely felt like he was telling the prequels. Like the stuff about his father and everything that we eventually got to see. In fact, I think the prequels were pretty true to these three and the things they set up versus the way the sequels
certainly
kind of went against certain things.
Absolutely. I agree. Yeah.
So back in Jabba's palace, Luke gives Jabba C-3PO, but does not warn or tell him. I feel like the only way that could happen is if he was actually just trying to give him R2-D2 and C-3PO insisted on tagging along, and that's how that ended up. Because otherwise, it makes no sense to not tell C-3PO what's going on and have him I
have to be involved.
It makes sense to me because of other things about C-3PO's character that doesn't make sense already, in the sense of making him. I mean, this is something that should always come up anytime anyone talks about Star Wars, which is just the irresponsibility of having AI with emotions that are that closely mirroring human. They're always so grouchy or excitable or puppy-like or whatever. And in the 3PO character of always being just terrified of everything. I remember thinking about that. Well, we'll get to that scene at some point later in the movie, but the idea of him just always screaming and reacting as though he's going to be in pain. And it looks like they can experience pain, which is also kind of
well. I mean,
and that's we have the scene where the droid's being tortured, so that droid's programmed to feel pain, and the other droid is programmed to inflict pain.
Yes.
So and you know what? In the Star Wars universe, this all makes sense because everything is about oppression and beating people down. And I don't know how it took me 40, and I think it changed over the years, and I think that's where, when you get to the end of Return of the Jedi, you're like, cool, good guys won. Yep. And I get like, there's no happily ever after. And that's why we have 7, 8, 9 the way they are and all that jazz. And I think the lack of imagination as far as the villains in that and all that stuff. But Mandalorian, I'll exempt from that. But Andor and some of the others, just like, now the message to me of Star Wars is everything dies and everything sucks. Just try and fight through it. Do what you can. But at the end of the day, there's no finish line. You're not going to win. The house always wins. The universe always wins.
Really?
Evil will win. To me, that's the message of Star Wars at this point.
That's not what I was getting out of it.
But I mean, essentially, Lucas, the rebels are the Viet Cong, and the Empire is the United States. I mean, that's the deal. And I think Return of the Jedi, this is the fruition. They're in the forest, but jungle. The Ewoks are the Viet Cong. because they're using all these means and they just keep coming and they destroy what should be a superior force.
Right.
You know, so that perspective, that matter of perspective, for Lucas, he kept true to it. To me, he was always like, no, we're the bad, or not we're the bad guys, but that's where he started.
So there's two things then. So one, why it keeps coming up when we're talking about Star Trek usually is because we're seeing Star Trek as being the utopian version of things, the way things are going to go after this has been fixed, or we're going to overcome that and get going. You know, there could be other problems. You see what I'm saying, though. This humanity is going to do that. Star Wars is always showing you the not quite the underbelly, but this is what's happening. This is, or it's trying to shine a light on the way things are, or the way things were recently, rather than the way they should be.
The first movie was so much fun, but even though it was also about at the heart of it was a thing that was destroying entire planets.
Right.
But it was like, but it was so much fun.
Another thing, probably the prequels in comparison, because they weren't as fun in that way, probably.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, speaking of fun, and this is my note about that droid torture scene, it's played for laughs instead of serious.
Yes.
And that torture room, had it been humans in it, would be such a dark and scary scene. And instead, it's a comic relief scene.
Mm-hmm.
And similarly, or not similarly, I guess, but way ahead in the movie when R2-D2 like fizzes out on the door to the bunker and looks like he could be dead, Han and Leia don't care at all. No. And you're supposed to like, this should be that, I feel like should be a dramatic moment, but it's not. Nobody cares. They're like, we'll fix them later.
It's so he can make funny noises. Everybody knows he does this all the time. And it's like, okay, yeah. It's like, look what he did. He's going to get up.
The Star Wars Minute guys talk about this a lot and their guests, that Luke is like the one person, and this is why I'm a Luke fan for one, and two, this might be why he was the chosen one, but he's the one person that talks to droids like they're sentient beings. Mm-hmm. Like everyone else is like, nope. They're like, do you want a new droid? We can fix him. We can replace him. It's like, nope, I want that one. You know, are you okay? Da-da-da. Not in your life, buddy. Yeah. So he's always like talking to them, and like his last line after,
just like Anakin.
The Jabba. Yeah. Oh yeah. That's a good callback. The Jabba scene is, hey, don't forget the droids. You know, he's like, hey, we got to go get the droids. We're not leaving them behind. And then they get out of there or whatever. So I do like that aspect. And I just, while we're on the droids, while we're on callbacks, the droids in the desert at the top is very much callback to episode 4. And Jimmy, we were talking about.
I thought of that.
Zoe, not.
She Jimmy, thought I had turned on the original movie again when she saw that shot.
Yeah. And I think that first 20 minutes of Star Wars: The Motion Picture is like, so this movie's about these droids in the desert, and then finally we get to everything else. But it's like, I love how slow it goes, but I'm also a child of the 70s, so I dig that stuff.
The slow burn.
I know people now are like, I got to go. I'm out of here.
I don't mind the slowness, but yeah, my daughter.
I can see a kid being like,
Yeah, going back to the things being played for comedy. Once, as I started getting older, and I just love the cyclical nature of my enjoyment of these kinds of things, especially these things being Star Wars. I just the disgust I started to feel at seeing how many things are just inserted for random, like, just this thing's making funny noises. This is going to burp. This is going to fart. Here's something funny for gross out kids, and like the droid torture thing, which should have been horrifying and could have been if you really thought through what was going on there. Like, again, programmed to feel pain. They get into that in later movies and stuff.
Anyway, but yeah, I mentioned this before too. You know, I mean, Lucas's original idea was, I'm just going to make this thing that's like the serials from the 30s, and also steals from all these movies and all that kind of stuff. And so he wasn't necessarily thinking, and also he didn't realize that people were going to be watching it 100 and 200 times and all that stuff too. But which, I mean, I'm sure he's happy with it because it made him a lot of money, and whatever. And good on him. I still love Lucas. He didn't ruin my childhood at any point. He made my childhood, actually.
What I'm getting at is I see some parallels with him and the way we talk about Roddenberry all the time.
Sure.
As far as the way that it's like there's some holdover, some sort of old-timey sensibility that digs in and won't let go about what should be entertaining, or what the things that you should do in certain ways to do this, that seem to start to overshadow the message in certain ways. The things that would have come that might have come through easier if it weren't for all the fluff. There's like, we have to it has to be this way, or people. I don't know. You see what I'm saying? It's
I mean, when we're talking about a guy whose first great movie, to me, American Graffiti was essentially a nostalgic movie about a time like 11 years ago. His high school, him graduating from high school. I keep forgetting about that. Yeah. So, I mean, I think it came out in 73. It was set in 1962. And it actually helped set off the whole Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley and all that. Grease, I'll even throw in there. Actually, I don't know that it's set. I think Grease might have already been a thing. But yeah, so nostalgia was already a thing in the 70s. But getting back to this movie.
Back to Jabba's palace.
Sorry.
Yeah. So this, and you know what? And this will also get into the, maybe not nostalgia, but so Jabba's got the dancer dancing to the music, which not exactly the Cantina band. This was not great music.
No, but so I watched it on Disney Plus, which is, of course, is the extended, enhanced, whatever. That dance sequence was not that in the original film.
It was not.
It was extended and added CGI dancers and stuff.
Yes. And then there's the main woman dancing. This was probably early 90s. Somebody had the VHS tape and we were watching it. I think it was actually at a bachelor party. And I said, hey, slow this down frame by frame. I think there's nudity here. Sure enough, if you frame by frame it, there is nudity in that scene where she's struggling with Jabba, where the dancer is struggling with Jabba.
The top was kind of one of those things that,
But then when I was watching it last night or 2 nights ago, I'm like, one, I don't know if I can do it frame by frame on streaming. Two, I don't know if Disney cleaned it up. So not that it matters. Not that it does not change my enjoyment of the movie at all, but it was there.
I mean, it was probably cleaned up before that. I mean, honestly, with all
You're probably right.
The extended
special edition.
Yeah. The extensions probably took care of that.
You're probably right.
Speaking of things that weren't cleaned up, that carbon unfreezing special effect, not the greatest.
No.
Unless you were going for it to not look great. And I'll say that might be the first part where I felt like this movie, maybe this is why it's it's still third on my list, but you still feel some of the 70s in there because it's Star Wars and it's still the first trilogy, but you can feel the 80s cinematic feel creeping in.
Yeah.
For better or worse.
Towards the end of the Jabba sequence, when the Rancor is killed, that trainer, Steve and I were talking about this earlier, that trainer runs with tears in his eyes. And I love that detail. Like, it implies so much story that's not there of who this guy is and what his relationship is. And I just thought that was so neat that they included that.
Well, as I was saying, though, that's it should have done that. But for me, it didn't for decades. And it gets wrapped up in all we're going to throw all these wacky things and, slapstick. It seemed more like slapstick. Haha, the bad guy is upset. This monster was killed.
Yeah. I had the same reaction both you guys had. When I was 9 or when I was 15, I was like, oh, that's funny. And then sometime in the last 15 or 20 years, I've been like, oh, no, it is still a little funny, but it's also very sad that this guy.
Yeah.
Modern day animal rights people who, the people who get upset when pets die in movies are like, this is too far. How could you possibly do this? Right. If they hear the other stories, if they hear the other things to flesh out what Rancors are actually like, they'd be just losing their mind over that.
Well, and I actually watched the whole credits like I always do, and at the end it does say no Rancor was harmed during the film.
So we go to the forest planet of Endor or Moon or whatever it is now, and we have the scene where they're trying to steal the speeder bikes from the stormtroopers. First of all, why did the stormtroopers not call for help right away? Why did they get on the bikes and run away first? Right. Makes no sense. They could have been swarmed the rebels immediately. But then second of all, when they steal a bike, and I think this was their attempt to fix that continuity, they're like, hit the middle switch, that jams transmissions. It's like, really? You have a switch, one of a very few switches on a bike that just jams the transmissions of your other bikes? Okay.
Yeah, the one on the right actually is the ejector seat from some other...
I mean, you need the thing to launch the pod and murder that. Yeah, absolutely. It just was so stupid.
That said, I still love the speeder sequence. That sequence.
It's fun. It just doesn't make sense. It's gratuitous.
Yeah. I think all the stuff on the planet doesn't make sense from a lot of those aspects.
Well, we have this whole thing where Darth Vader's like, I know Luke's here. I can feel him. I know he's there. I'll take care of him. But then you just let them land, let them do their thing, let some murder stormtroopers. Is that his version of handling it by like not even engaging?
This I think it proves that Vader's lost a step, one, and two, he was so consumed with his son and thinking about that, he's actually is starting to neglect his other duties. And also, there is good in him. That's the other part.
I think that it was also supposed to
your sister.
the false sense of security.
Yeah.
Or rather, the overconfidence on the part of the Emperor and letting them build up a false sense of security. So let's say that
in our time of triumph.
But I actually hadn't thought of an explanation for this until just now. Suppose that, Luke is keyed into their emotions on the planet, and he might have been tipped off that something were wrong if they didn't seem like if they were shut down right away. So he's walking into a trap himself. This leads up the confrontation in the throne room eventually, which I'm jumping way ahead for.
But Keith, he knows Luke's on the ship. Hit the ship with tractor beam. Don't let anybody land or anything. Then you've already got him in your trap. You don't even have to do the whole let them feel good, let them get into trouble on the planet. Just grab the ship. You got him. We're good.
Then you just roll directed by George Lucas. Roll the credits. Well, and there's the in the Luke Kenobi conversation here. Kenobi and I think him and Yoda both do this. They're like, you rushed to meet Vader, and then 2 seconds later, like, you gotta confront Vader. There's no other way around it. It's like, isn't there? I think there is. Just blow up another Death Star. You're Luke Skywalker. You're the greatest Jedi of all time. Just blow up another Death Star and let's get out of here.
Yoda. So in his dying, his deathbed conversation, he says, Luke says, I still need to learn more. I haven't finished. Oh, no, you're fine. You know enough. Luke reveals that Vader's his father. Well, you're not ready. You shouldn't. You didn't. You haven't been trained enough. You probably shouldn't do this. But you have to. And so then he's talking to Obi-Wan, who says something along the lines of, he'd already told me you have to confront. Yoda said you have to confront your father for the training,
right?
The end, to become a Jedi. And then Obi-Wan says something similar. But then as they're discussing it, and this could be explained away as part of his test. He's essentially saying to him, or he implies that you have to kill Vader. I think Luke asks him something like, what if I can't kill my father? Then Obi-Wan answers something to the effect of, well, we've lost. I'll be lost if this, or there's some sort of failure. And I don't know if he comes right out and says, you have to kill him or something, but it seemed like he was trying to let him believe that violence is only a solution or something.
And there is a callback, or eventually becomes a callback in the prequels. So Yoda says, only when you confront Vader, a Jedi will you be. And I'm like, how can I be a master but not be on the Jedi Council? It's the same thing. It's all these damn arbitrary rules these Jedi come up with. That's why it's the Return of the Jedi, and that's why Episode 8's the Last Jedi. All these stupid rules.
On the deathbed thing too. That joke popped in my head. I was, before you actually really did say this, so I didn't remember exactly how I was going to go. So, Yoda's sort of turning over, and he's obviously tiring out. And Luke said something, so that's it. So if I'm done, does that mean I'm a Jedi now? Am I? That long pause, expecting to say something like. I was hoping for like a callback to like directly to something like, no, you're too impetuous or something. But he actually does say, not yet. I don't know.
I am the Jedi, as a matter of fact, actually. So
the last.
Right.
I did write down about this part with the land speeder and everything. Leia gets to be awesome in this movie. Like she finally gets to do all the action stuff and just be cool.
And that was a part of the movie that I was like, am I just really enjoying Carrie Fisher because she's gone in our lives? But no, I had the same reaction. Like, nah, she's great in so much of this. And I mean, I think it hit me more on an emotional level because for those reasons. But I also really appreciated all the work she's doing in this movie, because Harrison Ford didn't even want to be in the movie because he thought he should die in the last movie. But he's still a lot of fun. And then Luke's the exact opposite side of it, where I got to be serious and talk this weird iambic pentameter kind of stuff. So, and she's the one who has to keep it together. So,
on that subject too, I noticed some of those forest scenes, or rather the scenes where Han and Leia were together. it seemed that there's that progression from it didn't seem like he was trying to treat her like she was less than or a damsel or something. It was just, you droids and Ewoks stay here. We are going to go do this.
Mm-hmm.
Like he and Lee were going to go and tackle the guard, and it wasn't even a question of, oh, this is going to be too dangerous for you, anything. So I thought that was a good progression of sorts.
So they get caught in the net up in the tree. R2D2, C3PO, everybody, and R2D2 taking a buzzsaw to one tiny piece of rope lets the whole thing collapse.
He did the calculations.
Yeah, there you go.
And he just happened to be right there at the most convenient spot.
Well, it's one of the most convenient spots. There's probably several around the net that would do that, because the Ewok engineers didn't think those kinds of things through.
I'm not buying it.
No, they probably didn't expect animals to have buzz saws when they get up there. So they were like, "Well, this will be fun."
Yeah. Yes, but look at how that's built. What kind of net is built so just buzzsawing one small spot makes the whole thing fall apart? It doesn't make any sense. Well,
they had the schematics. You know, that they were aware of. Somebody pointed out, look, there's this one small weakness. If somebody
look at any net. There is no one small weakness.
Sorry,
it's got a whole net has whatever you call not contingencies.
I know what you're trying to say. Like, it's all
the design of a net itself is built so there isn't a single point of failure. That's kind of against the design of a net.
I mean, sure, in our galaxy.
Well, first of all, I sort of make a call back to the Death Star plans. With the hubris of, well, they could do this one thing, but no one's going to do that.
Well, no, that was sabotage. We found that in Rogue One or whatever.
True, yeah, they did retcon that too.
Sabotage.
It's probably poor materials. It wasn't designed to catch sentient beings. It's probably just designed for animals.
I don't buy any of your excuses for it. It doesn't. It still makes no sense to me. Han and Leia are reunited in the Ewok village, and they kiss. And you notice that Luke immediately shoves his way in the middle of them, and is then like C-blocking them because we're going to keep our clean rating. Right. But like they're kissing reunited, and he gets in the middle, and I'm sure it's a camera thing, directing choice. But then he's like in between them both for the extended part of the scene. It just, he's not being a good brother. When Luke tells her that that she's a sister, she says she's always known them. Really? Because in the first movie, it sure seemed like you two had something between you. So I don't believe it.
Well, it was more of that. This is why the whole first.
If Leia's always known, that makes the whole first movie pretty darn awkward.
Not always known. It's like on some level, I think it's that this is why I felt close to you automatically. And they made the joke in Family Guy as well, didn't they?
Yeah. Well, and then there's it comes later. My favorite one of my favorite YouTube clips where they show her saying, "He's my brother." And then the look on Harrison Ford's face is like he's replaying all that. And it's it's hilarious. But
I mean, I enjoy Han finding out and the way that she draws it out purposefully just to make him squirm. I know that's the way I interpreted the scene. I think the scene was supposed to just be, oh, she's already like taking this thing for granted and not thinking about what his hangup is. But it seems to me she's just messing with it, which is better.
I think that's a Skywalker family trait because Anakin could never really tell Padme what was bothering him, and then Leia is like, Luke, what's wrong? Ask me some other time. It's like, why not right now? And then Han's like, hey, da-da-da. And she's like, I just need to be alone.
Yep.
So, I don't know, Skywalkers.
So when they're trying to break into the bunker, Han, to distract the guard outside the bunker, taps his shoulder and then runs and has him chase him to around the corner for the guns. And yes, I know that's a funny shot, but honestly, a stormtrooper just picked up his gun and shot Han and not chased him. Or why didn't Han like knock him out or do something? It just doesn't make sense. Again, another thing that doesn't make sense. You're sacrificing realism and believability for a funny visual. This isn't Spaceballs. This is Star Wars. Stop acting like Spaceballs.
They did some of that in 4 as well when they're running through the Death Star or whatever.
That's why 4 sucks too.
I'll say that's why, when Solo says, hey, it's me, that's to remind everyone, like, remember that guy running around the Death Star and jumping through things and running into like 100 stormtroopers, like, whoa, and running that guy's back. Including even including the loudest twig snap in the history of our galaxy or that galaxy when he's sneaking up on the stormtroopers, like,
Oops.
You made me think of something else from the beginning, which we missed in Jabba's palace. So back in Jabba's palace, Lando showing up in disguise.
Mhm.
I don't know. I mean, perhaps the audience might not have been able to see who it was, but for some reason,
I mean, on my big HD screen, I saw. So I'm thinking on a movie theater screen, they probably saw too.
But the pausing to make the point of pulling down his mask just enough to reveal his entire face as he's peeking, as if that was somehow obstructing his vision.
Yeah,
reminds me of just that one of those great Bugs Bunny gags. You know, having him wear the beard, and he's just like there in the scene for a second, and he's like, "Hey," like pointing himself to the eyes, like, "Hey, it's me." And then,
when she comes in as the bounty hunter, Batu.
Bosch.
Yeah, as soon as she takes off the helmet and they play her music, I was very touched by that.
Yeah.
I know
That's
Jimmy doesn't feel this way, but when Jedi Luke shows up, and then when he starts doing his business, I'm like, this is what I've been waiting for since 1977. I mean, in 1983, I thought this. And it's like, yes, kicking butt. I mean, granted, he blew up the Death Star. I guess you can ride on that for a while, but I wanted to see more stuff.
There's something that adds to the mysticism of it. Not mysticism, but the mythos, the pedestal, I think, of the Jedi culture back then, especially,
or maybe
interpretation.
This goes back to what we were talking, because I've been like, oh man, I really want to see Luke kicking butt, but I guess maybe it's fine that I don't, because in my mind, all of the Jedi kicking butt he did up until episode 8 or whatever, is still pretty awesome. I don't need to see it on film, I guess. So maybe I should just shut up about it.
Well, I mean, when you said business, I thought you meant like when he's there and just being really calm and intimidating, and so confident,
that.
Strolling in, and like
then,
I'm telling you,
when he destroys the sandbars, I enjoy that. That's one of my favorite moments in the entire history of Star Wars. So
it's just the satisfaction of seeing that come out. It's just there you go.
Yeah, he doesn't need any more training. Finally, I guess we didn't talk about it. We skipped over this, but do we need to talk about Slave Leia?
I saw a meme recently that's probably been bouncing around for a while. I think someone trying to shame her or something for having been in this movie. Like, what would you tell your granddaughter, etc.? Have you heard that one? The thing.
Right. Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. I would tell her that this evil slug made me wear this thing and I didn't like it, so I killed him.
Well, I mean, I think it helps in modern viewing anyway that she gets to be so kick butt the rest of the movie that kind of makes up for it in a way, even though it's super demeaning and disrespectful that they put her in it in the first place. Not
only that, I mean, she's killing on the spot too. As like here's a direct result.
That was very satisfying.
Yeah, I'm not even being rescued. I'm doing it myself right now because I have the opportunity.
She kills him, and then even that is kind of a kink thing.
Yeah.
I mean, and I've said this before, I've said this a lot about original Trek and Trek in general. It's like, in sci-fi, sex is a part of it, whether it's just because it's a bunch of horny guys or it was, now it's everybody watching it or whatever.
True.
It's definitely a part of it. So this was definitely a trope come to life, come to screen, and God bless her for she did it. And I know I think she got an eating disorder from it. And I could see that.
Yeah.
Or at least she starved herself for a while, or wasn't eating that much and all that stuff. So,
I would certainly understand the temptation in her place, honestly.
He chokes Jabba out, but I think for sure he's supposed to be enjoing it for a while before he's actually dead.
I did not realize that. He does seem to look like, I can see that visually. That looks like
it's not auto asphyxiation because he's not doing it, but I think he's enjoying being choked out. So,
and I didn't write this down, but shouldn't Luke be saving Lando before he jumps on that barge and starts fighting everybody, leaving Lando just dangling?
Yeah, he should have. Yeah, but.
Okay, just making sure I wasn't the only one who thought that.
I mean, Lando would escape because Boba Fett eventually escaped from the Sarlacc, so
I mean, but they didn't know that at the time.
No, they did. They did not.
Oh, Jimmy might not have known that actually, but I guess you would have had to have.
I saw the pilot of Boba Fett.
Right. And also,
I did know he escaped it.
And also Mandalorian season 2. So
I did watch Mando season 2 as well. Yeah.
We touched on this briefly, the whole certain point of view thing, but I think how you feel about that is a matter of perspective.
That was the first thing that occurred to me during that conversation. The certain point of view, I was like, I don't know. It's I think it was almost from our comments that was wacky enough on its own merits to not even have to make the call back to the matter of perspective.
Now we're back in the forest. I loved it was in the Redwoods because Lucas, that's near where he grew up. I actually think no, he was south of Frisco, but Skywalker Ranch and where Lucas is now, or Marin County, is up there. So I thought that was cool. Solo says, we'll meet at the shield generator at 0300, as I always do. What does that mean? Wouldn't 0300 be the middle of the night? I guess on our world.
On our world,
Oh.
but we don't. I'm sure they're using a standard Rebel Alliance time.
You're probably right. Yeah. It's probably
It wouldn't make sense for them to change their timepiece every time they go to a new planet.
Whatever time it is on the fourth moon of Yavin, that's what they're all synchronized to.
So my next note is it's a trap scene, which of course is iconic.
Yep.
And then we go back to the forest fighting, and the Ewoks are fighting and dying, and it's still played for humor as much as the droids are. And these are living sentient beings. I mean, I guess you could argue the droids are as well, but like, it strikes me even more callous that the Ewoks' deaths are played for laughs, or the
There
Ewoks
is the
fight.
scene where there is the one that they play. Williams plays the sad music for when the one guy's like, "Come on, come on!" It's like, oh no, he's dead, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Wait, which ones were being played for laughs? The actual deaths, though. I mean, I don't remember.
I just think the whole Ewok sequence seemed goofy.
Well, certainly, yeah. Them actually got their version of what guerrilla tactics would be with their rocks, spears, and ropes and so on. And yeah. But I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I think most of the actual fallout from that was hidden. There might have been a few pratfalls occasionally, but with the one Stephen mentioned, though, that was definitely like supposed to.
And another thing I liked in this movie better. I'm jumping around now. Sorry, guys. Lando, I actually liked him more on this watch than I remembered before. Because in the past, I was like, well, Lando's there, but they just kind of threw him in there. But he's the guy who's actually figuring out it's a trap, and the other and something else in there. He's like, oh, this is what's going on, which I thought was cool. I mean, Empire Strikes Back. It's Billy D. Williams. I still love him. Actually, I loved him in this, and he's one of the things I love about Rise of Skywalker. Is like Billy D. still got it. But
it's a good redemption arc for both he and Han through this. So and this movie certainly was him being useful and not just a scoundrel or whatever. So
yeah, I think one of the things, and again, this goes back to it's called Star Wars. All the different ways they find for the Empire to kill people, all the different vehicles and devices are just on some level. It's like, oh, that's cool, that's imaginative. On other levels, I'm like, what are we doing here? We're just somebody's somewhere like here. It reminds me of I wrote down the old joke, George Carlin joke, where he's talking about a flamethrower. He's like, where do you think that came from? I'll tell you. Some guy was like standing there and he's looking at a bunch of people. He's like, man, I wish I could throw flame on those people. And somebody was like, let me get to work on that. And sure enough, flamethrower. You can throw fire on people. That's something we came up with. Good job, humanity. But I think there's probably, I guess, a lot of the Empire, that's what they do. And somebody at Lucasfilm as well. But
yeah, an interesting way of putting it, or that link to make, is I never really think about. There are always practical applications for fire in some respect.
Sure.
But
and a lot of it, the Empire has air vehicles, land vehicles, space vehicles, forest vehicles, ocean vehicles, snow vehicles. I'm running out of biomes, or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah,
they have vehicles for every biome. Yes.
Yeah, and outfits. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's I guess it's supposed to be. Yeah, there's the universally reaching embrace or arm or oppression of the Empire.
Yeah.
There's nowhere you can no biome you can claim as being superior in, because they're still going to adapt and get you.
So the next note I have is when Han tells Leia he loves her and she says, I know. I thought that was a nice callback to Empire.
It's a great callback.
Missed it.
Pretty good. Luke cuts off Darth Vader's hand and we see the robot hand.
Mm-hmm.
I guess at that point we didn't really know just how much robot Darth was. So that was still somewhat surprising.
Yeah, we knew he was more machine than man, but yeah. And I think, and plus he got Luke's hand, so now he's getting them back. Callback.
Yeah, I definitely got that bookend.
You can land different places on the duels. I think I still like the Empire one more than this one, but this one's really good. And it's weird because the prequel duels and even the sequel duels, there's a lot more involved, but I think these are just better and more concise.
I
enjoy it more.
guess.
And also, I think this one actually makes Vader look sympathetic at the end when he's wheezing
Well,
and
certainly.
all that stuff. So I think that's cool.
Yes, but I still am bothered by the removal of the helmet and the look of him. Now, I mean, I wish it would have been James Earl Jones. I guess it should have just been James Earl Jones. Because you get to hear James Earl Jones forever, and then you see that guy. Yeah. And it's like, that's disappointing.
Sebastian Shaw.
Yeah, I know.
I forgot these were in there. The 2 no's that Vader does before he throws the Emperor down.
Same. It felt like that hadn't been there before.
That was new, or at least new and fairly new. I know I'd seen it before, but I'd forgotten about it. Right. And I'm still not sure. I kind of like it, and I kind of don't. And maybe that's only because of the nodes from Revenge of the Sith. But yeah. So yeah.
Well, I think it adds something for to build to that rather than him just going. Yes. You know what? I'm just gonna walk over and.
Well, and I don't know if that's on here or not. Maybe I did have. Maybe it was something else I was watching. Oh no, it was on here. And maybe this goes to Marsha Lucas, who's an Oscar-winning editor. His first wife. The ability for them to convey emotion through puppets or a mask, just like
the helmet, yes,
the way they show it, like
reflection.
Him just looking, and then looking back, and that's probably Lucas also just being like such a cinephile that he's like, oh yeah, this is how I can make this shot, even though you can't see a face or anything, it's still going to convey that emotion, and I think that's impressive. I said 9 didn't ruin my childhood, and it didn't. I also reject a lot of it, but to me, if the Palpatine clone thing exists in 9, it makes this less satisfying, because then to me, Vader's still making the choice, and there is that satisfaction of it. I guess there's still that. I guess it doesn't change that, but the feeling of, we vanquished this foe, this evil guy, we finally got him. Instead, it's like, nope, there's 100 zombies, and you just threw one over a cliff.
Yeah, but I mean, clones were already part of the makeup of the franchise, so it's not like that came out of nowhere. So that's where I excuse that, because they had a whole Clone Wars before this.
But where are those the people that are on all those Star Destroyers also?
Yeah, that's
no. I mean,
there were all the people in the forest. That's why there was no hurry to get down there and save them, because who cares if the clones die?
I mean, would Vader have even known any of that? I mean, from his perspective.
I mean, he's one of the greatest Jedis. The Force is strong in him. I think he should. I think he should.
He's also been the general for 20 years. I think he should know the types of people serving under him.
Well, he'd also been brainwashed.
If Palpatine's that good, then why is Palpatine even bothering with anything? I guess because he's crazy, but
yeah.
Well, because he's old and dying, he needs to cement his legacy. He needs somebody to carry it on.
All right, so getting back to what Jimmy was saying before, and I was jumping ahead toward this. Why let them go? Why not put a tractor beam on that one ship and just be done with it? It seems like there was some sort of larger machination to get the Rebel Alliance into the trap.
Right,
it's a trap.
Right,
so
right.
A lot of those things
and the Emperor and Vader just wanted to convert Luke to the dark side.
Right. Yeah. And so they wouldn't have they didn't think it was a threat. Let's let this play out so we can get to this other thing, and then
And as you guys know, the universe is binary. You're either light side force or dark side force.
Yeah. And even the Emperor even said he's going to come to you anyway. So.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So when they do blow up the new Death Star, they don't get nearly far enough away before that explosion happens. For the size of the explosion, everything we're seeing, they should be a lot further away.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're jaded at this point. You do it a couple times, and sort of like they've calculated it out a bit. So you have this is not the Rebel engineers are better than the Ewok engineers, and so they were workshopping. And it was like, where's the point where we can just like kind of put on the sunglasses and walk away from it, so we can really have
I feel
it play
like you're just
across the
making
universe.
Excuses at this point, Keith.
The sandbarge is the same way. Every time I watch that, I'm like, they're too close. They're too close, and that thing explodes.
Yep.
Somebody should have got hit by shrapnel.
Yep.
It's because Luke had elevated to a Jedi at that point, and as part of his, once he graduates, he has the powers to just kind of push explosions back a certain way. He was confident.
That's true. Yeah, that is true. I mean, somehow he did it.
Han's willing to step aside. I thought it was almost a little bit out of character at the end that Han was willing to step aside for Luke and Leia.
I think it had been earned at that point, honestly. We saw that kind of playing out through I don't know. It felt like that was part of his emotional growth through the series.
He was saying it, he meant it, but he didn't really.
That too.
It probably wouldn't have gone that way, but
Yeah.
I think he would have tried at least.
Yes.
It's not like that at all. That's what they said. And then, of course, and we can all argue this all day, but I'm sure this is. I know this is a thing people have argued over and over again. It makes no sense to use the Han Christian or whatever, Hayden Christensen, Anakin at the end instead of the old
Hans Christian
guy.
Andersen.
I mean, it should have been James Earl Jones, but that would have been really confusing. But it doesn't make any sense to show young Anakin. I guess the thinking might be like, oh well, he's redeemed himself, so he's back to being Anakin and not Vader. But at the same time, Luke wouldn't know who that is. He'd be like, "Who the hell is that guy?"
He's probably like, that guy seems like a cool Jedi. I wonder where my dad is.
Yeah.
I feel like he might understand. All right, he might be able to. The whole thing of I can feel my father's presence, so it's probably the same.
Somehow
he must be
I
here
know
somewhere.
That's my dad.
This doesn't really make sense to me.
Well, I mean, the other thing is that in theory, he would probably resemble him in some way in real life. I mean, that's certainly the way they animated it for the Clone Wars and so on.
Mm-hmm.
I do like a lot of the ending. I enjoy the special edition celebrations, seeing the other planets.
Yeah, that's
celebrating.
Cool.
Those are fun.
The Jar Jar Binks planet and everything.
Yeah. And they did this this is one thing I did like about Rise of Skywalker. I
didn't catch that.
You get the very end where everyone gets to kind of reunite, and even the side characters or whatever. So like we get to see Mark Hamill hugging Luke hugging Han and Chewie and Lando's there, and then even Wedge Antilles, Dennis Lawson, played by Dennis Lawson, who was in all 4, 5, and 6. He's there for that scene or whatever. So
it's a very feel good. Yeah,
it is. Yeah. Right off the top, and I think the Family Guy touches on this. The Emperor and Vader, I think they're questionable as motivating bosses. It's like, well, we need to. The guy's like, we don't have enough people. Well, you better hurry up or you'll be dead. I'm like, that's not going to help the problem. You're still. Then you have fewer people. You're not. This is not the way this works. I mean, I'm here to get you in shape. So wait a minute. Your whole thing is you have all this power of the Force. You could make things happen through the Force, but instead you're going to come here and yell at me and threaten me with death. That's not helpful. It's not helpful at all. So they're terrible.
Yeah,
they're horrible.
Wouldn't telekinesis be a useful skill in rebuilding things?
You would.
Yes.
To maybe move here. Let me move a couple of heavy objects here. Even if just like maybe 2 or 3 a day. I'll come out and just like here's a box. I'll just like.
Yeah, he's disassembling giant girders and stuff in Cloud City. So why don't you do the opposite and build something? No, that's not in my makeup. I don't build. I just destroy.
Well, yeah, it's easier to destroy than build. So yeah,
that's true.
But not now. Now we have Genesis. We can do it in 6 days, or 6 hours.
Yeah, buildings and everything. Just skyscrapers.
This is the line I didn't like as a kid, and I continue to like, but now I think I like it when Han says, "I don't know, fly casual." And then he also says later he's got to hot wire the door.
Yes.
And this is an argument I have with Star Wars, the newer Star Wars people, maybe the old ones too, is I always say, the first movie in all 3 of those, especially the first one and a little bit here with Han, they take place. Part of the deal was they weren't taking themselves too seriously. I think that's why they're beloved. There's a lot of irreverence there, and it's set in the time, and that's why I know Han is like, especially as the series goes along, and I think that's why the prequels didn't connect as well, and maybe why the sequels did a little better, because you had Poe and Finn were a little more like this. Is Han Solo's the one guy who's not speaking iambic pentameter. I mean, Chewie and some of the other characters, but he's one of the main guy who's like, I don't know what you guys are talking like weirdos, but I'm going to talk like a normal person. And so I think when people are like, I don't know if Solo, Harrison Ford's phoned it in. It's like, that's the same guy from the first movie. They're the same, all the bits and jokes and stuff. Nothing's really changed. You just got used to people talking and very serious and hoity-toity. So I enjoy C-3PO as a guide. I know people have problems with C-3PO, but and maybe just for the part where, and again, this is Luke appreciating the droid saying, "Thanks, C-3PO," and he's like, "I didn't know I had it in me." I just think that's a sweet little moment there.
Before we move on from that, the whole show them your magic thing. that was an example I was thinking ahead to. Like he's being lifted up in the chair. He's freaking out like he's going to fall off the side of a building. Like, oh, put me down. Like he's going to just like, what? Come on.
I do love when he tells the story of Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote, this is what I just pretty much said. Solo gonna solo, so he's gonna do what he does. Fashion. Leia in Ewok Village, did they make that for her? Was that for the biggest Ewok they ever had there? Because she changes into her hair is done differently. Looks great, of course. Carrie Fisher, phenomenal throughout.
Well, this is the guys who designed the net for their village.
Oh,
they're much more proficient in garments.
Speaking of which, then she has a scene with Luke where he kind of explains, "Hey, by the way, we're brother and sister," and that I think for sure. As a kid, I was like, and I think because I was like, nah, they can't be brother and sister. They dated, but now as I've gotten older, I'm like, oh no, whatever. I accept that part, and it just hit me harder. And I thought,
very Targaryen.
Yeah. It wasn't even a date. It was like one kiss to make a point. And it's not like they were,
one for luck and one to make a point.
To make Han jealous.
Yes.
Yeah.
But this scene, maybe it just, to me, it called forward to the Last Jedi scene, but it just really got me. And of course, I know we don't have Carrie with us, so maybe that was part of it too. I was thinking not so much in 4 and 5, but in 6, I think a lot of the stuff developed in 1 through 3 connects for me. And maybe I'm trying to think if that's the machete. Machete's 4, 5, 2, 3, 6.
Yeah.
So maybe
4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 6. Right?
Is that? I think 1's not in it.
Oh, it's not.
Yeah. Machete is people being mean. I'll use the PG version of that and saying, "Oh, the number 1 is so bad. We're just going to skip that altogether." But the idea is, 4, 5 prequels, then 6.
And then 7, 8, 9. The machete order now includes 7, 8, 9.
Oh wow! I've got one last note. This is just, I think John Williams and Ben Burt. They've been obviously John Williams just nominated for his 53rd Academy Award, also lost again for the 48th time. But his music is obviously so great and evocative, and the way he also does callbacks in this. Yeah. Between he and Ben Burt, the sound designer. Like a lot of movies, if you watch it with no sound or sound effects, you'd be like, this is crap. But it just they elevate every scene. Like Pete the Retailer from the Star Wars Minute talks about, like, I just love the sound of a TIE fighter, even though it makes no sense. They don't make sound in space, at least not in our galaxy. But I'm the same way. I'm like, I love that sound.
A long time ago, the TIE fighters were so primitive, that they didn't really have like the mufflers right. So that's
any other notes before we get? Oh, do you have an alternate film?
Oh, I do. Mine is the original title of the movie was Revenge of the Jedi, but then they were like, no, the Jedi would never do that. And I say nonsense. They should have.
They sure do.
And they yeah. So I would like to have gone with that.
My alternate
did get a Revenge of the Jedi shirt. But.
My alternate is a very Rogue One type ending where they basically all the main characters die when they're trapped, and maybe you let Leia give birth to some babies, Han's babies, and they're spirited away before she dies, but essentially kill all of our leads.
Okay, so I'm glad you didn't mean that they're all just on a pile and you just see them pop out of Leia's dying body and just kind of crawl away,
and then the Ewoks run away with the babies and raise them
as Ewoks. And so it's
actually that would be kind of interesting. Mowgli or whatever his name was.
Yeah, Jungle Book. Yeah,
and then the Ewoks accidentally eat them. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
No one's there to stop them.
Yeah, exactly.
There would be no one to stop us.
So let's rank. Who are we having a drink with?
Pretty much alluded to this earlier. It's gonna be Leia.
Of course,
it's gonna be Leia.
This is the movie she really kicks butt in. I'm awesome. Definitely having a drink with her.
Yeah.
I'm not writing these down anywhere, by the way.
As much as I love, as much as Luke Skywalker, Master Jedi Master is one of my favorite people, it's going to be Leia. She's definitely going to be a lot of fun.
You're getting ahead of me to the next subject, but drinks.
Probably Palpatine.
Oh, really? Why?
Yeah. He's hilarious. I don't know.
Okay.
No,
Somehow Keith's having drinks with Palpatine.
Oh, good for you. I feel like one drink would rehydrate him because I'm sure he's just a dried out husk. So, who's your annoyance? And obviously, mine's Luke Skywalker.
Mine is, and I said I liked them a lot better this time around than I have in the past, but still some of the Ewok nonsense gets me.
Yeah. I mean, I think my drink and annoyance apply for the entire trilogy, by the way. I don't remember what I said in previous episodes, but Luke's always annoying, always have the drink with Leia. Or Han. I like Han, but sure. I chose Leia this time around. Sorry, annoyance?
Yeah, the Ewok stuff, probably.
Ewoks?
Just take your pick of any of them, really. It's just that guy.
I enjoyed the Ewoks.
Was it the Tarzan yell?
I was, having seen the movie enough times that it was hard for me to stay focused on it.
Yeah.
Some of those things went by me this time. Honestly, I forgot about that.
And who is the shady character of this movie?
Well, Lando, of course.
Right? What?
For me, it's a tie. I thought about Palpatine because he's obvious, but I'm going with Kenobi and Yoda and all their
that's good.
certain point of view nonsense.
So Palpatine is such an obvious thing that's not really what we say when shady. So I think Obi-Wan would be the shady because he was lied about the father.
Yeah.
But I'll give you that. I'm still going to choose Palpatine because I hate him so much. But
well, I was going to say obviously Lando. He's still a scoundrel. The undercover work in Jabba's palace. That's very suspicious. No, it's Obi-Wan is probably the best answer for this.
Cool. Ranking up just between the three movies, I can't remember. Did we rank Empire above New Hope last time?
Should have, but
good question because
I know I would have ranked it above. Keith, do you think Empire's better than New Hope?
I think so. I mean, it feels like such a.
I think Steven may have been on dissent.
I've gone back to 4.
Okay, so where, assuming that Empire's our number 1 and New Hope's our number 2, where do we put Jedi?
3 for me.
I think it's still 3. I mean, it feels, as I said, I did a journey with it. I think there's some parts I enjoy more now, or things I was picking up on more now than I would have then. But
I put number 2. I find it more fun than a New Hope, and while there are plot holes, there aren't as many plot holes as a New Hope. So
I think you just haven't or you hadn't been focused on it for long enough to be annoyed as annoyed by those other things, the things you're throwing in for the kids, so to speak.
I was watching it with 2 children this time, which made it a little harder to pay attention, but I've seen it so many times and rewatched it not that long ago, and this is how I've always ranked them. Well, always as an adult ranked them, so I feel pretty confident about it. I'm pretty sure as a kid I ranked Jedi higher than Empire, but that's just because I didn't realize all the plot holes.
And like I said, there are a lot of people I know that Jedi is their number 1.
Next week, we are talking. What are we talking? What's the special?
The 1980 version, right?
Yep. The Flash, the Queen soundtrack. Yes, we're going to talk Flash Gordon, and that one will be exclusive to Patreon. So you're going to have to donate if you want to hear us review Flash Gordon. I would recommend donating. Only $5.
Yeah, come on.
Not that much.
Yeah.
It's going to be great. And then the following week, even if you don't donate, we are going to be back with the VHS Star Trek Klingon board game. Still have not played that. We're going to get into it. We'll see. Well, that's what we're doing the next couple weeks. So until then, live long.
Forget there's an episode 9 and prosper.
And just make sure you have clone backups to ensure that you live long.
It's All Been Done presents
Who's Got the Time?